My name is Camille Saltman. I'm Managing Director of Entrepreneurship at UBC Okanagan campus. I'm delighted to be here today at Kitsch Wineries on location in Southeast Kelowna with proprietors Ria Kitsch, who's an alum of UBC, and her husband Trent Kitsch. To get us started, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional unceded ancestral territory of the Syilx Okanagan Nation, and to welcome you from near and far and acknowledge the traditional caretakers and owners of those lands. Whether you're tuning in from the Okanagan, the Lower Mainland, across Canada or around the world, we're delighted to welcome you on behalf of entrepreneurship at UBCO and Alumni UBC. So, to get us started, you two are an incredible entrepreneurial duo. I should give the audience a little intro on your background before we go to questions. Trent actually founded his first venture while he was finishing up his MBA at the University of Western Ontario in entrepreneurship. It was called Saxx Underwear. He met Ria right after she finished her BAA at UBC in business marketing, and they began to build Saxx together. They successfully built and sold that company, and then Trent founded a home building company, and actually the beautiful chateau that we're on the grounds of right now is one of his award-winning homes. Then, that not being enough, they jumped into creating this beautiful winery, Kitsch Winery. Still had some juice in the tank after that, and spotted another opportunity in the cannabis industry. They started DOJA, and soon that company merged with two others, and then they were acquired by Canopy Growth. So I'm really excited to be here to share some of your exploits and your insights with our audience, and also to learn a little bit more about the big expansion of the vineyard that you've just undertaken. So Trent, I'll start off with you. Customer discovery is a really important part of our entrepreneurship program, and we really encourage the ventures to take a lot of time and understand who their customer is and what problem they're solving before they begin to build. I'd love to hear what made you decide that the world needed a new line of men's underwear.
Yeah, well, it was really the definition of entrepreneurship, I think, with problem recognition. And I was fishing in the Queen Charlottes with my dad in 2007 and felt uncomfortable for a few days because of the large ocean suit that I was wearing for safety. And I was just thinking to myself, looking off into the ocean, how could I reinvent men's underwear to prevent contact and be more comfortable? So that was my question to myself. And because I had been an athlete and part of baseball background, I'd always been around equipment to kind of try to protect your package, but nothing that was ever comfortable. And so in my mind's eye, started to envision Saxx as these side panels, an addition to traditional underwear, boxer briefs. And then I started thinking about fabrics and applications and things like that from there. But the initial inspiration was just fishing and being uncomfortable and thinking, how could I make this better?
These real world experiences are often the best way of learning about business. I know our ventures say that building the venture in the program is the best business education they can receive. I know, Ria, you've talked about the business education you gained in building Saxx. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so when I met Trent, I'd finished my BA, and I didn't really realize how applicable what I had learned was. And so the applied skills, meaning working on business plans and working on analytics, management, strategy, really helped me so that when I met Trenton, it was started really with, hey, do you want to go and guerrilla market and hand out flyers at marathons and festivals and say, hey, have you heard of Saxx? And I could do that. I was like a Saxx girl, to start. And then it became, order fulfillment and building the website and different components that were frontline, but it started to work more into actual business growth, expansion, applying these skills that I'd learned in business school in theory into reality and scaling, this startup into something that could ultimately be acquired.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So I hear that you appeared on Dragon's Den, and
Yes.
I'd love to hear how that went and the backstory on that.
We were part of a business plan competition, a national business plan competition, and just by chance, the producer or one of the producers for Dragon's Den was in the audience when I was doing my pitches. And so they called me from Toronto and Kelowna, and we did another pitch kind of on conference call. And then,
They were talent spotting.
yeah, and then it aired in October or November of that year, and the business had developed more to that point, kind of in good timing. So we, had evolved, like she said, and had the website up at that time, and then got the presentation on Dragon's Den and got offered a deal, but didn't make a deal because I'd gone in for $250,000 for 10%, so post money valuation of 2.5. And at that time, you had to go into the den and get everything that you had asked for. And they weren't really into the creative things they do now with like, I'll give you a royalty and a half loan. And so
You're in, you're out.
yeah. And so Arlene Dickinson, who's a great entrepreneur and someone who I look up to, offered me 50% of the money, but no other dragon stepped in to kind of partner with her for the balance. So then we didn't get a deal, and we got entered into something called the Armchair Dragon Award. So we got voted by the people the best product that didn't get a deal. And so we got $50,000
Nice.
for our prize.
With no equity.
And
Needed
and
to be given up.
Beautiful.
so you can see the video on YouTube. It's pretty interesting, and the reason why they didn't want to do a deal, the other dragons, was that they argued the inventiveness and the uniqueness of the product made it so it wasn't going to be scalable, marketable. And I always thought that was so like incorrect, in the sense that was the exact reason why it was going to be successful.
Well, it's ironic that you were acquired by a company that acquires niche brands.
Yeah, exactly.
I would just proved your thesis. What other sources of funding did you go out for, and how did you look at that as a challenge and an opportunity?
The first money that we put into Saxx was a $20,000 student loan that I told
was a student project.
the bank that we needed for tuition, and because I had a tuition receipt, and then they gave me $20,000 really easily. As a student, you can get a student loan almost like, very easily.
Too easily.
And so I got that, and I was supposed to put it into tuition, but then I just put it into Saxx. So I paid a designer to make a prototype, and went to Queen Street West and bought fabric and found manufacturers and things like that. So the first $20,000 was my own, and then one of my MBA professors at the end of the term, it gave me $50,000 for 5%. And my whole rationale was, for any entrepreneur out there, is if it's $1 million idea, right? I thought it was $1 million idea. We had no sales, but it was $1 million idea because people seemed to like it, or he thought it was interesting enough to be interested. I was giving up job opportunities and things to pursue it. So it must be $1 million idea. So that's how we came to valuation on the first 5% for $50,000. And then about 6 months later, then the next round was another 5% for 100,000, and that was with a local entrepreneur here in Kelowna, and was basically the rationale was that we had made sales, we had finished the patent, we had done intellectual property, we'd had the website going, so we'd made some milestones to justify that increased valuation. And then I learned a lot about giving away equity too, as you do as entrepreneurs, trying to incentivize people to be involved in the company or advisors. So I was really fortunate to get other people involved who helped me quite a bit as well. Heard the most.
Well, I think what was really interesting, and when you watch Dragon's Den and you see people pitch and they have an idea that maybe seems like, what are they doing? They've mortgaged their house, but then you also hear this message of don't listen to the naysayers, just because someone says it's not a good idea doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. And so I think one thing that's really challenging is people to know when do I say no? When do I mortgage my house? And one thing that Trent and the journey with Saxx really taught me was, if people tell you no, you don't have to listen to them. If the market tells you no, that's when you should listen. And so when we did the Dragon's Den, or when the Dragon's Den episode aired, and we had set the website up just in time, and all of a sudden $10,000 in orders came in overnight while we were sleeping, the market told us yes. And so if we hadn't made any sales, that was something Trent had already said. The fork in the road is going to be when this airs. That's going to be whether we should keep going and, take out any loans or raise more money or whatever the case. And so that's kind of a great jewel that I like to share, set these milestones that are based on market response.
And that's really the ultimate in customer discovery. Will the customers buy the product or not?
And if not, is it price or is it product or is it place? Those marketing P's. But ultimately, if you're on Dragon's Den airing and people still aren't buying it, okay, what more can you have done, right?
Right.
Because it was a pretty premium price at the time for a single pair of men's underwear, and people bought it. So, it was also be open to discovering your customer. We thought it was going to be men, and women were actually the ones buying Saxx. It was women buying for their men a lot of the time.
I bought the first stylish underwear from my husband.
Because women will pay more for our undergarments.
Plus, it's hard to find gifts for men.
That's true too.
That they would really appreciate.
And women are early adopters and whatever the reasons are. So when we're talking customer discovery, there's end user, and then there's the customer who's buying too. So that was a learning for us to kind of pivot our narrative sometimes to be women oriented for this male product, which was kind of cool.
Well, I'm sure you were able to be very helpful.
I understood that part better than the men problem.
Right. Yeah. Well, so you then jumped from apparel to launching a winery. So a whole new, apparel to agriculture, essentially. That must have been a whole new journey in terms of understanding where the market niche was and how you wanted to differentiate the brand and how to set the business up. Tell me a little bit about that journey.
Well, I guess the journey was one foot in front of the other, like any journey is. We're from the Okanagan, Trent's third generation, and we felt like we love wine. It's shared. It's something you share amongst friends around a table. So we felt there was room for an opportunity that was a very approachable, inclusive, yet high quality, youthful and playful, yet refined and sophisticated, kind of trying to do this balancing act that people of all types felt they could aspire to and afford that bottle. So that was kind of the vision of how we went from underwear, and similar vibe to Saxx, to be honest. It was a little bit premium, but accessible.
You got some exposure to agriculture, then saw an opportunity in the cannabis field as that was opening up. Tell me what you saw and the niche that you decided to tackle there.
I just heard the rumor that Canada was going to legalize cannabis medicinally. And so I started doing research, and then had an alternate view of where the market was going to go, which was adult use rec retail, which at that time wasn't perceived as going to happen. It was very medicinal in 2013, 15. And we had a vision for adult use rec retail when everyone else was really focused on low quality, low cost cannabis or heavily medicinal cannabis. Ria, Ryan, and I started DOJA Cannabis with the capital that we had, been fortunate enough to get from selling a portion of Saxx. So we put all our own money in for the first number of years.
Yeah.
And then
rented an office from his dad, and
then our first capital raise for DOJA was $1.8 million at, I believe, 18 cents.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, in a period of 2 years, we ended up fortunate enough to sell that for, many dollars.
And I think what's interesting there too is sales are key. Like sales are key. Quality, if you have quality, why do you have quality? To get sales. Why do you do all these things? To get sales. And when we brought Ryan on board, he's super talented in graphic design and marketing, and he's got a great eye and he's super smart. But also, he was our big leapfrog in e-commerce for Saxx. So when we discovered how the medical marijuana system was going to work, and it was going to be sold only online to medical patients, Trent very wisely said, we need the best e-commerce person we can find. Because if you can make that sale and you're the easiest to find or you're the easiest to buy from, then you'll get the customer.
You're in front of the right people at the right time.
Yeah, it's about that sales channel and developing that, whether it's via distribution, whether it's via your reps, whether it's via online. And really making sure that you have a focus on sales, because that's what's going to give your business a valuation eventually. You can kind of go on the idea it's $1 million early, but at some point, just like as it happened with cannabis, you need to prove it in the financials, and that comes with sales. And then you can work on getting costs down. Then you can work on these things. But if the money's not coming in, it runs out.
Many of our teams, you've been talking about branding, you've been talking about marketing and sales. Many of our teams are technically focused. So they're coming out of engineering or bioscience, and the brand side of it is somewhat of a mystery to them.
Yeah.
And I see the two of you, I love the brand that you've built with Kitsch. It's so youthful and fresh, and it has such a beautiful energy, and it's elegant.
Thank you.
And I think you did the same with Saxx, and I saw some of the materials from DOJA as you were going through that journey, and they were gorgeous. Tell me about your branding philosophy and how you approach that challenge with each of these, and some of the insights you've learned.
Yeah, I mean, my approach is quite simple. Like, your brand is you, and we're all different. So you don't have to think what will make me different. You already are different. So really honing in on what you love. What music do you love? What movies do you love? What art do you love? What do you do for hobbies? And trying to pick out, why is this thing you want to do? How does it relate to who you are? And then trying to make an authentic package around that. So it's when you come to Kitsch, or when you look at our things, they're not just, here's our wine. It's got music, it has art, it has people, it has video, it has
great parties.
Yeah, great parties. So it's about experience. A brand is about experience. It's about all your senses. And it's about how things look visually, how they taste, how they smell, how they sound, the environment in which you experience them.
So when they talk authentic self, there's some integrity, because it's based on a real person and a real set of values that are behind the company.
I think so.
That's the word I would use, exactly, values.
I know one of your values is sustainability, and when you've described some of the work that you did to transform the cherry orchard into the winery expansion, I know that was a really important piece of that process for you.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about, I know you each played very collaborative roles, but somewhat different roles in getting that project to finish, across the finish line.
That was a big project, as all projects and all ventures are. You don't really know what you're getting into until you're midway, and then you have to choose. You either pull up your pants or you walk away, and we have never walked away yet. So, that project was 11.5 acres, planted a Pinot Noir that will not produce fruit until 2022. So again, that long view, that'll be the first yield we get. We planted it in preparation for being certified organic. Trent is really amazing and always reminding me about the finances. And not that you need to be like pinching pennies, but you're always really like, let's map this out. How much should we spend per acre and what are we at? Let's do the math. And it's always the story is the math doesn't lie. The math doesn't have feelings. It doesn't have an opinion. The math is the math. It's black or white. You're either on track or you're off track. And if your trajectory changes, it doesn't take long before you're way off target because of the trajectory change, even by a bit. So those are some great things that Trent, I think, brings to the collaboration, and he did with that project, but it's never at the expense of quality, right? It's just being smart about it. Where are you going to get that return for quality, and where are we just maybe not paying enough attention?
I know with my husband and I, when we were doing separate startups, we found it really hard to carve out time to be together. And so our last business, we decided to build together.
Nice.
And that changed everything for us. And I'm guessing that might be your experience.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hear, because I know that some couples hesitate to go into business together. They're not sure how that'll impact their relationship. I've found it to be a wonderful experience.
When we came back to Kelowna after having sold, part of Saxx and bought the vineyard that's now Maria's block, or it was an orchard, we were doing separate things. Trent was doing Kitsch construction. I was actually working for a local company, Waterplay, and I liked it, but I felt like we weren't as connected. And so I actually read back on my goals from back then, and it was like, find something that me and Trent can work on together again. And here are the ideas, like a cannabis company, a winery, an art agency. These were the ideas. And because similar to you, I found we connect, and then it's about finding times when you don't talk business, right? It's about carving out those, and Trent's parents are really amazing, and so is mine, that they are super happy to hang with our kids while we go on date night. It's like, when are you going on date night? It's like, thank you. So we do think that's important, but I think we're really lucky because we have the vineyards and we have places to go where it's a little bit of work, but it's also a lot of joy, and it's a lot of time well spent, quality time together. Even if our kids don't always want to help us pick rocks and do the work, we can go for walks, and they see the seasons. And so that's my answer. I don't think every couple should necessarily work together, but I don't think it should automatically be discounted as we'll spend too much time together. I think a lot of times the reason you work well as a couple in anything is because you work well as a couple in anything. So if it's managing your home or managing your business or managing your kids, it's kind of interplays, your dogs, all the things.
Well, I so appreciate the time with you both, and I know that these insights will be of great value to our audience and to our teams. Thank you so much for hosting us here.
Thanks for thinking of us. We're super proud to be from the Okanagan and contribute back into the ecosystem, the economy, and the community.
Well, you've been wonderful from a philanthropic perspective in the community, as well as business leaders, and we really appreciate it.
Thanks, Camille.
And thank you to all of you for joining us today from wherever you are for Homecoming at Home. Our Entrepreneurship at UBCO program is offered without cost to alumni who have graduated within the last 7 years, and also to researchers, undergrad and graduate students, and staff of UBCO. We have more than 30 wonderful mentors, very much like Ria and Trent, who bring their business experience to coach, as well as a whole series of educational programs. The program is made available to those who are affiliated with the university through the support of our sponsors, Lawson Lundell and MNP LLP.